my brothers and sisters, when people stick around in a really warm room for over 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon, and when low-wage workers and retirees on fixed income make donations to a working class campaign, we know we have hope. And I really appreciate you sticking around to listen to my words as well. And I wanted to start first by thanking Katie Wilson for being here. And for all the brilliant activism that the Transit Riders Union has done to bring together people who are highlighting the injustice, the transit injustice that is happening in our city. I also want to thank Jess Spear, who you just heard from. She talked about herself as being a member of Socialist Alternative, and she was a volunteer coordinator for our campaign last year. What she did not tell you about herself is that she is also a fully qualified climate scientist, but for some curious reason, she chooses to spend her time making very, very, very little money as an activist. I want to thank everybody who worked on our campaign last year, Socialist Alternative, people who aren't members of Socialist Alternative, but who clearly understand the need for solidarity, the need to be together to organize ourselves. I want to thank the airport workers, the fast food workers, hotel workers. I want to thank Joe Higgins for being here and bringing us an international message of solidarity. Brother Dave said, this hall was built for exactly like this. And how many decades has it been that we haven't had this? Entire generations have seen a plunge in their standards of living. But this is not just about standards of living, it is about dignity in existence. And we are fighting for that very dignity here today. And we are here to take this movement forward. And I think we all know how incredibly different today is. This is January 2014. Just think where we were on January 2013. We ran a campaign for the State House in 2012. We were calling for $15 an hour then. We were talking about taxing millionaires. We were talking about the need for affordable housing and rent control. And they called us stupid. They said, these crazy socialists, they're so out of touch. They don't know what's going on. I invite the corporate media to look at us today. When we say minimum wage, we mean all workers. A universal living wage is what we're fighting for. And I agree with, again, I'm going to agree with Brother Dave and also maybe disagree a little bit. But I agree that while we are justly and correctly celebrating this moment, because remember, this is not just about celebrating in an empty manner. This celebration forces us to recognize the latent power in the working class, because it is all too easy to get demoralized and feel disempowered and feel like nothing can change. So, by God, we should be celebrating this moment. This is also a moment for recognizing what we are up against. Corporations, business in general, are already talking to government officials and also talking to the not-so-official spokespeople of the government. They don't like this at all. They don't like having to engage in a discussion about $15 an hour, but you are forcing them to do it. But that's step one. You force them to come to the table. But that's not going to be enough. Because now they will start talking, and they have already started talking about phasing it in over many, many years. What should our response be? We have to say, minimum wage has reduced in value over 3 decades. Incomes to the 99% have stagnated. Workers have been phased right into poverty. We don't want any more phasing in. And as a city council member, I have the pleasure of talking to business people. And as I've said before, that is an important task because I'm representing our interests when I go there. But they have said to me, "Oh, are you sure workers want 15? No, I have to say, as a labor activist, this gives me so much joy. They say to me, "Oh, are you sure workers want 15? Numbers have no meaning. Don't they want comprehensive solutions? Don't they want healthcare, education, and housing?" But when business stands in front of you and says, 15 has no meaning, don't workers want other things, that should be challenged by us as disingenuous and dishonest. What I say to them is, I don't know what you're talking about, because the low-wage workers who are going to benefit from 15 have none of these things. Are you pretending that you're going to give them healthcare instead of 15? Are you pretending that you're going to increase funding for public education instead of 15? And if you don't understand that 15 has meaning, then try living for a week on 15. And even that is going to be hard for many of the elite. They will bring out small businesses, but we've learned our lessons from CTAC, right? We don't need to go too far back in history. We saw in CTAC that there were many not so small businesses parading as small businesses. How many of you have heard of Cedarbrook Lodge? This was a business that was very, very vocal in the CTAC battle, and the owner would burst into tears at the hearing, saying he's going to have to, all his workers would be destitute. But these are not small businesses. These are, very big-sized businesses. They're not McDonald's, but there's a huge number of big businesses that are going to pull out the small business card in order to discourage you from your moral track, in order to make you feel like you're somehow being unjust by asking for a decent standard of living for yourself. And yes, it is true that genuinely small businesses are getting wiped out. But that is not because workers are being paid too much. That's because that is in the nature of capitalist system to crush small businesses and give all the advantage to the big. Capitalism overwhelmingly sets up small businesses for failure and allows big business to devour the economy. The reason small businesses are failing is because of the Walmartization of our nation, because of Amazon, Starbucks, and all the fast food corporations. But brothers and sisters, here is the bottom line. The cost of living to a worker in a small business is no different than for a McDonald's worker. Small business cannot be protected on the backs of workers. The government should tax big business in order to support small business, and small businesses and working people should stick together to fight for peace. And when we get 15, we can fight for other things. For rent control, for a municipal bank, to restructure the B&O tax so that it puts the burden of taxation not on the smallest and the most struggling businesses, but on the giant businesses. And
oh yeah! That's right! That's right!
Woo! But when you talk about government, taxing big business to subsidize small business, again, people will tell you, that's crazy socialist talk. Government cannot support business. This is a free market.
Bullshit!
Brothers and sisters, remind them of the tens of billions of dollars that the state has given away to the Boeing CEOs over decades. Remind them that they called a special session in Olympia to give Boeing the largest single corporate handout in US history.
Take over Boeing!
What has happened so far is exciting. The CDAC initiative has been a shot in the arm for workers everywhere. The mayor's executive order to give $16 an hour, $15 an hour for all city employees is a welcome step. But it is really important for us in this room to draw out the correct political lessons and not be taken in by the corporate narrative. None of this would have happened in the first place if workers had not moved into struggle, forcing the political establishment to pay heed to their demands. And if workers had not chosen to go out into a grassroots campaign to bring in a voice of their own into City Hall, we did not get this from the kindness of business people. Right. I am serving on the mayor's committee, and as I have said before, I will do my best to represent the interests of Seattle's working people. But this is not the time to let up. It would be a big mistake to say, oh, the city government officials will take care of this for us. Some of the same businesses that bitterly opposed the $15 an hour initiative in CTAC find themselves on this committee. Do you expect them to fight for you and for 15? No! And a simple question is, if they are so committed to 15 in Seattle, why don't they drop the lawsuit against CTAC, Prop 1? Yeah. If we don't mobilize our forces in this historic opportunity that has been handed down to us, then it will be a betrayal of our own responsibility. We will not get what we are fighting for. History is a warning. Too many examples of opportunities lost for the working class.
2010 was the opportunity lost. That's right.
everybody who says the left needs to learn to work together, they're absolutely correct. But do you know what is the most important thing we need to do on the left in order to be working together? That is to stand unapologetically for the interests of the working class and working together on the left also means breaking our ties from those who have betrayed us again and again and again. Breaking our ties from the two big business parties who haven't stood up for us and have been the leaders in carrying out this race to the bottom. That's what means to me for left to come together. And you will hear a lot about me. You will hear that you can't be an activist and a legislator. Somehow becoming a legislator corrupts you automatically. I think we have to understand, yes, there are great dangers everywhere, and history is littered with countless examples of well-meaning people who took on the center stage, who took on elected positions, and got very easily co-opted and corrupted. But co-optation and corruption is not an automatic process. It happens when we don't understand that we have to pick our side very clearly. It happens when you think that I can go to my office in City Hall and serve both big business and working people. It happens when you run campaigns that are not democratically organized, campaigns where working people, ordinary people don't have a voice. Brothers and sisters, we have shown that you can run a truly democratic campaign that represents, without hesitation, without ambiguity, our interests collectively, and we can hold ourselves accountable to each other.
All right.
But for that, we need democratic organizations of our own, independent of big business and of the parties that represent them. And building this movement is not just about 15. It is about getting organized to begin a pushback against the decades of assault on our living standards, against the impoverishment and disintegration of entire communities of the working class. And when business and their political representatives say, why are you hung up on a number? We should talk about comprehensive solutions like healthcare and education. Tell them, don't worry, 15 is just the first step. Tell them, once we win that, we will be back to win the rest of our rights. And lastly, I want to do my share to contribute to our work in 15 now. I want to thank everybody, individual and institution, who have endorsed our campaign and have pledged to make this the top priority for yourselves in this year. And I pledge $12.50 every month from my city council salary to 15now.org. That comes to $15,000 a year. any personal glory from this. What I want you to do is to determine that you will fight with us every inch of the way, not only for $15, but to generate a vibrant working class movement that is not going to go away this year, but is going to build and build and build and become stronger every year that passes by. And that you'll promise me that if you run into somebody with a six-figure salary, ask them to donate $12.50 a month to 15 now.